tonight.
Merciful God, thank you for giving us another day.
The House votes on more money for small businesses and hospitals.
We have to be very prayerful, and we have to be as bipartisan as we can possibly be.
The latest on the coronavirus relief package and what it means for America. Plus, Mike Pompeo calling out China over the COVID outbreak.
We strongly believe that the Chinese Communist Party did not report the outbreak of the new coronavirus in a timely fashion.
Tonight, we bring you an exclusive interview with the Secretary of State. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. $484 billion to help the country get back on track. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder. Tonight, the U.S. House of Representatives is set to send the latest coronavirus relief measure to the president's desk. The bill provides aid to small businesses hit hard by the pandemic. It also gives funding to hospitals and expands coronavirus testing. The president has expressed his support for the legislation, adding he will sign it as soon as he gets it. And as the outbreak batters the economy, the White House has vowed to spend whatever it takes to help struggling Americans. But now 4 relief bills and almost $3 trillion later, some are sounding the alarm on the level of spending. CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson joins us with more. Abigail?
That's right, Jenna. Before the ink was even dry on the latest multi-billion-dollar aid package, talks in Congress were already underway for more mammoth spending. But now Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says it's time to pump the brakes.
My view is we've gone so far on the national debt here that the next time we address this issue, the Senate should be back in session, fully up and running, with everybody involved in the discussion.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is ready to get to work on another bill aimed at helping the heroes.
We have healthcare workers, transit workers, police, fire, EMS, all kinds of public employees who risk their lives to save lives and now lose their jobs. And this is most unfortunate.
But McConnell is urging his colleagues to consider future implications and assess what's working from the previous bills.
Unless we get our economy up and running again, there's not any way we can spend enough to continue to prop up the country.
The $2.8 trillion price tag of the relief bills thus far sparked this morning from Republican Senator Rand Paul.
The gargantuan federal bailout that just passed over $2 trillion brings us closer and closer to a point of no return. A point at which the world loses confidence in the dollar, a point at which our debt becomes an existential threat to our security.
Paul agrees with McConnell that reopening the economy is the only way out.
No amount of money, not all the money in China, will save us from ourselves. Our only hope of rescuing this great country is to reopen the economy.
President Trump says he's concerned with the growing debt, but there hasn't been another choice.
I'm always concerned about everything. We had to fix this problem. We were attacked.
With the latest round of small business loans likely to run out as quickly as the first, lawmakers are hoping that new language in this new bill will ensure that the money truly goes to those businesses that need it most. Back to you, Jenna.
All right, Abigail Robertson, Capitol Hill correspondent, thank you. Well, unemployment continues to climb as most of the American economy remains shut down. The Labor Department reporting 4.4 million people applied for jobless benefits just this last week. In the 5 weeks since coronavirus outbreak began here in the U.S., about 1 in 6 people have lost their jobs. About 26 million people have sought unemployment benefits in that time. And some economists forecast the unemployment rate for April could go as high as 20%. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has been an outspoken critic of China in this pandemic. Earlier today, he spoke with CBN chief political analyst David Brody about China's role in all of this.
Pompeo, Secretary of State, thank you so much for being with us today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, David. It's great to be with you again. Hope you're doing well.
Hang it in there. I know you are too, and there's a lot to talk about. I want to get to obviously China and the coronavirus. You made it clear that China has some explaining to do on this. I know you said that you don't know if the virus started in a lab in China and maybe not the wet market in Wuhan, but either way, do you believe the Chinese Communist Party is lying to the world right now?
David, it's incredibly important, even as we sit here today, that we get to the bottom of what transpired and that the Chinese Communist Party come clean about how this all began. Look, we know it started in Wuhan, China. That's the origination of the virus. We need to figure out how it happened. It's not just about political retribution or accountability. It's important today. We need to know this so we can save lives going forward. We need our scientists, our academics, our epidemiologists all to have access to the data, access to a sample of the virus, access to the places it might have come to. Those are all things that matter so that we can solve this problem, get our country back to work, and save lives.
So the Chinese ambassador just recently, the Chinese ambassador to the United States called for a serious rethinking of the relationship. Would you agree? I mean, has this situation fundamentally changed our working relationship with China?
Well, there's places that we work alongside China, and there's a lot of places where the President of the United States has said, look, we just weren't being treated fairly. The obvious example is trade. President Trump made very clear from the time of his campaign, even before he was elected, that the trade relationship between two countries wasn't fair, it wasn't reciprocal, and we needed to fix that for American workers so that we'd have jobs here in the United States that wouldn't go someplace else because of unfair trade rules. I'm very concerned about what China's doing in the South China Sea. We watch as a company called Huawei, a Chinese telecommunications company that is controlled by the Chinese government, comes to countries around the world where American citizens' data may be subjected to scrutiny by the Chinese government. Those are things that existed before this virus. Those challenges will remain, and President Trump is committed to protecting American people and keeping them safe and getting the trade relationships right so that we can have jobs here in America.
You know, speaking of relationships, you have emphatically stated about China, Iran, and Russia that they're using this coronavirus crisis to launch a propaganda and disinformation onslaught against the United States. Do you believe they are in cahoots with one another on this? In other words, is this a coordinated effort by those countries?
Boy, it's hard to know the answer to that. What you can say is they're observing what the others are doing, and then they're responding in a group. That is, they are taking information being provided by one, and others are promoting it online and elsewhere, too. This information, David, this disinformation campaign matters. The American people all across the world go to sources to get information for their safety, information for the health and that of their family members. It is nasty when a government runs a disinformation campaign that puts those people's lives at risk and their health at risk. We've done our best here in the United States, and frankly, we've had other countries around the world call out this fake news, this disinformation. It is disingenuous, it is dangerous, and these governments need to stop, and they need to stop doing it in a coordinated way as well, if that's what's actually taking place.
So you're not necessarily discounting the fact that it could be a coordinated effort. You say more investigation is needed on this, then?
We see very similar messages propagated by very similar means. It's difficult to know the level of coordination.
Mr. Secretary, I want to get to Iran, obviously, in a moment, very important. But on Saudi Arabia and oil, I know there have been some Republican lawmakers sent a letter to you. They're upset at Saudi Arabia. They say basically we're under direct threat from them as they continue to send oil here to the U.S., oil that we don't need, basically accusing the Saudis of trying to kill the American oil industry through oversupply. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, full disclosure, before I came to Congress, I worked in a company that sold equipment in that industry. I know the Kansas oil patch and the Oklahoma, Texas oil patch pretty well. We were a small company, but I know how these companies have been impacted by what has been the largest decline in demand for crude oil products in recent history. What President Trump's been focused on is two things: getting stability back in the marketplace. He was centrally involved in talking to the king and the crown prince in Saudi Arabia and with President Putin, and ultimately with the Mexican government as well. I was working on it too. And the president got them to a place where they reduced their output. The second thing we've got to do is we've got to get the American economy back open. We've got to get demand back. When that demand begins to come back, you'll see prices start to get back to a good place, and then you'll see the American energy industry begin to thrive once again. I know these people. They are tough. They are strong. President Trump's committed to making sure that they have everything they need to make sure that this industry comes out on the other side of this virus in a way that allows them to continue to do the important function of providing more independence for America on foreign energy sources.
So no harsh words right now, at least for Saudi Arabia on this. So it's a wait-and-see approach?
Look, we've got to get it right. The president was very clear what his expectations were for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as well. He wanted to make sure that they engaged in a thoughtful way in those negotiations, and he got a really good outcome there, a real serious reduction in the total output that would come not only from Saudi Arabia, but the other Arab OPEC nations as well, in addition to Russia.
Fair enough. On Iran, I know it's something you worked on for a very long time as a congressman, of course, as Secretary of State, CIA, all of that. Iran's Revolutionary Guard obviously been designated a terrorist group by the United States. Now we know they launched this military satellite into orbit. You said that Iran needs to be held accountable for what they've done. How exactly might that happen going forward, Mr. Secretary?
Boy, it was really jarring yesterday to see that. The Iranians had lied once again. They told the world that they didn't have a military program that was involved in missiles and satellites. And yesterday, the IRGC, the cutting edge of the Iranian military, announced that they had launched a satellite into low Earth orbit. What we intend to do is to gather the nations across the world. The French put out a statement today. They too know how dangerous and destabilizing what Iran did. I'm confident that there will now be more countries that understand what President Trump has understood since he first came into office, that the Iran deal was a crazy, bad deal, that we all need to move away from it, that the world needs to disassociate itself from Iran, and that the community of nations needs to come together and convince the Iranian regime to cease their activity, which has led to them being the world's largest state-sponsored terror for so many years. We've done that. We've put real pressure on the regime. We continue to do that. We have to deny them their resources to conduct the activities that you saw them undertake just yesterday.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, always good to see you. Stay healthy, stay safe there in the world.
Thank you, David. You stay safe and healthy, too. Bless you.
Coming up, new presidential pushback on Georgia as it begins to reopen. You're watching CBN's Faith Nation.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN News Watch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN News Watch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today. Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God, even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening.
My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members, free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
Georgia will begin to reopen areas of its economy beginning tomorrow. Gyms, hair salons, and tattoo parlors will be allowed to operate while practicing social distancing guidelines. President Trump last night, though, said he disagrees with the move, saying it's too soon. And according to a new Reuters Ipsos survey, a majority of Americans agree. 72% say they support stay-at-home measures until doctors and public health officials say it's safe. Most health experts say more widespread testing is needed before they'll make that call. And joining us now for our Faith Nation political panel is Caitlin Conant, political director for CBS News. Caitlin, it's good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks so much. Great to see you, Jenna.
So CBS News is out with another poll that also shows the majority of Americans think it's too soon to be lifting these restrictions. What about these nationwide protests, Caitlin, against these stay-at-home orders? Are they putting pressure on political leaders like the governor of Georgia?
Well, what we've seen in our poll this morning is that a majority of Americans actually do not approve of those protests. And that's even Republicans. More Republicans don't support them than support them. And when you look at Republicans alone, you had 13% who said that they thought the president should be encouraging them. And that's compared to 87% who said that they thought he should either be actively discouraging them or just not talking about them at all. So I think this is a very small subset of the population, at least according to our poll today.
Yeah, and the president, he did seem to do sort of an about-face yesterday after initially supporting the governors who were ready to reopen their states. He's now criticizing Georgia's governor for his decision, saying that it is too soon. Caitlin, what do you make of this turn of the tables, change of heart?
Well, I don't think it should be too much of a surprise. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that the president was saying he had full authority over the situation. Then he went back and said that the governors would be making their own decisions. So I don't think it's a shock that he's second guessing some of these things. But I think if you're in Georgia and Atlanta and you woke up today and your governor is saying you're going to lift the restrictions tomorrow, and when you open the paper, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the front page was Trump saying that he now strongly disagrees with the governor. So I'm curious to see how that plays out over the next few weeks.
Yeah. Caitlin, how important is it, do you think, that the economy gets up and running again? A lot of Americans are eager to go about their normal day-to-day lives.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, a lot of Americans are affected by this. I think we're going to be hard-pressed to find someone who doesn't know someone whose health has suffered, or who has potentially lost a job or had to shut down a business. So people want to be healthy and they want the economy back up and running. But our CBS News poll this morning showed that more people are worried about starting the economy too quickly and having that cost lives or health than are worried about taking time and having this go a little longer and having the economy suffer a bit. So that's the issue that everybody is kind of facing right now.
Yeah, it's a tough decision. It'll be interesting to see how it unwraps. Well, Caitlin Conant with CBS News, thank you so much. Stay safe.
Thanks, Jenna. You too.
Well, she gave up 2 high-profile jobs for the sake of her calling. ABC News' correspondent Paula Ferris on finding her true identity. She joins us next.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world-class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Happily, Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m.
Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
you'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Well, what do you do if you feel like your life is heading in the wrong direction? Our next guest answers that question head on in her new book, Called Out: Why I Traded 2 Dream Jobs for a Life of True Calling. And she joins us now. Welcome, ABC News reporter Paula Ferris. Paula, good to have you.
Thank you. It's so good to be on the show, Jenna. I really appreciate it.
So in your book, you open up about the challenging time that made you really have to reassess where you were headed and your calling. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, Jenna, I was just doing what society told me to do, to lean in hard. And that's almost always synonymous with doing and with career. And so, I worked really hard. I rose the ranks at ABC fairly quickly. I was the weekend anchor of Good Morning America Weekend Edition, co-hosted The View, and I was at this professional high, but this personal low. And I felt like my personal life was falling apart around me. Yes, I was at a professional high at the height of my career, but I looked around, Jenna, and the landscape around me was on fire. My relationships were suffering with my husband, with my kids, with God. I wasn't attending church regularly because I couldn't due to my schedule. My health started to suffer. And I felt this stirring in my spirit that God really wanted me to take a step to the side. But I challenged him at first, and I said, but didn't you call me to do this? This is my calling. I'm walking in my calling. Look, I'm doing this all for you. And it wasn't until I went through a season of hell, which I write about in the book. And Jenna, within 7 months, I felt a little like Job. I experienced 5 major events. I had a miscarriage with an emergency surgery, and then I suffered a concussion at work through a very freak accident where someone threw an object at my head right before I was going live for Good Morning America. The day I got cleared to go back to work after being knocked out from the concussion, I get in a head-on car crash. That's incident number 3. Incident number 4 is influenza, and then I developed pneumonia. So that was 5 incidents or major events within 7 months of my life. And I said, okay, God, I understand you want me to slow down because my professional and personal choices are clashing with my professed values, and my family's getting my leftover. So as crazy as this sounds to me, as crazy as this sounds to everybody else, I'm going to step away from these 2 dream jobs. I'm going to step away from Good Morning America weekends anchoring, and I'm going to step away from The View. And then in that space, Jenna, I realized I had no idea who I was outside of my job. My identity and my purpose was in career, was in work, was in vocation, was in this calling on my life. And that's where a lot of the book picks up, is this misplaced significance in finding our worth and our identity and our purpose in things that move and shift, like vocation. But something that we're all experiencing right now in this pandemic, where we realize we've misplaced our significance in things, and we're experiencing loss at such a visceral level on a multiple areas, whether it's job or dwelling or family that we're losing to the crisis. So, God allowed me this personal crisis to kind of reset and then really discover unshakable, unrootable calling and purpose on my life that don't shift in a personal crisis and don't shift in a pandemic. And I feel like, yes, we're experiencing loss, but God's also given us an opportunity to reset, to reassess our priorities right now.
Paula, do you think this coronavirus pandemic is sort of that wake-up call that you write about in your book? You write, so many of us have found our identity in the wrong things, and so God uses a good crisis to wake us up from time to time. Do you see this pandemic as maybe one of those situations?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not a prophet or a prophetess, but I do know that God does allow things to happen in our life to get our attention. And if we don't slow down long enough, he's going to go to whatever lengths he has to get our attention. God didn't get my attention initially even though I knew my life was falling down around me and my relationships were suffering and my health started suffering and my kids were getting my leftovers and my husband was getting my leftovers. I went through that personal crisis, and I think that God's going through great lengths. So this is an opportunity for all of us to just say, do I feel off? Have I misplaced my significance? Have I said one thing but actually done another? And that's where I was. I had to really eat a plate of crow for all intents and purposes. I had to grovel. There were so many moments of humility where I said, I had proclaimed for the longest time, Jenna, that I wasn't defined by what I did. I was defined by who I was, a wife, child of God, a mother. And then when the rubber met the road and I stepped away from what I did, something I didn't think defined me, well, guess what? It had.
The book, once again, is called out, Why I Traded 2 Dream Jobs for a Life of True Calling. It is chocked full of wisdom. Paula Ferris with ABC News, thank you and congratulations. Still ahead, a moving show of support for those fighting on the front lines of the battle against COVID-19.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to CBN.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Protect your sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Finally tonight, first responders often put themselves in harm's way to protect us. But during this pandemic, hospital workers have been the ones on the front lines. And that is why police and firefighters in Arcadia, California, decided to take the time to honor hospital staff. They organized a drive-by parade to celebrate the men and women working tirelessly to save lives in this pandemic.
I like all the support that we get because really the staff is working really, really hard right now. It really brought tears to my eyes. Like, seriously, brought tears to my eyes.
It was just very moving. I was getting goosebumps as I was watching them go by. We work together. We're a team.
And as they drove by, hospital staff returned the thanks, offering gratitude to the police officers and firefighters who also put themselves in the line of danger each day. And we will leave it on that note this Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us for Faith Nation. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Have a great night.